Hear the unsettling drone of a violin. A haunting melody drifts from within. It is a warning. This is Ashwood Hostel, a place steeped in unsettling energy. Its heavy silence whispers of forgotten tragedies. A place where shadows linger a little too long, where a bone-chilling presence festers beneath the surface. 18-year-old Emily, with her heart full of dreams, arrived in England. She carried 2 suitcases and the weight of her family's expectations. Ashwood Hostel, with its archaic charm, was to be her new home, a temporary haven in a foreign land. But beneath the veneer of normalcy, a sinister truth lurked. The hostel warden, Mrs. Hawthorne, a stern woman with watchful eyes, showed Emily her room. It was small, sparsely furnished, yet cozy. A wave of loneliness washed over Emily. She longed for familiarity. Little did she know, a different kind of familiarity awaited. Days turned into weeks. Emily settled into a routine. The hostel, however, remained an enigma. Strange noises echoed from the old pipes. Whispers seemed to follow her down the hallways. Other residents, a mix of international students and weary travelers, kept to themselves. One evening, Emily saw it, a door at the end of the hallway, slightly ajar. It was always locked, always silent.
What is behind that door?
Curiosity, a dangerous companion, took root in her mind. She asked the other residents about the door. Their reactions ranged from uneasy silence to outright fear. The mystery deepened, pulling Emily further into its grasp. One name, uttered in hushed tones, sent shivers down her spine: the Grey Room. Grey. Samantha, a girl with a rebellious spirit and hair as bright as her personality, befriended Emily. She was different from the others, bold, adventurous, and unafraid of the whispers that plagued Ashwood.
"We have to see what's inside," she declared, her eyes gleaming with mischief.
Together they watched the door. They learned its patterns, always locked, always silent, except for a faint scratching sound that occurred every night at precisely 3:03 a.m. Their curiosity morphed into an obsession. They decided to unlock the secrets of the Grey Room, unaware that some secrets are best left buried. The lock yielded to their persistence, each turn of the key echoing in the silent corridor. It was as if the door had not been opened for decades, resisting their efforts until finally, with a reluctant click, it gave way. The door creaked open, releasing a gust of stale, icy air that seemed to carry whispers from the past. The cold was palpable, wrapping around them like a shroud. The Grey Room was shrouded in an unnatural chill, a cold that seemed to seep into their very bones. It was as if the room itself was alive, breathing out an eerie, frigid breath. Dust-covered furniture sat in the gloom, draped in cobwebs that glistened in the faint light. Each piece seemed frozen in time, untouched and forgotten. The air hung thick and heavy, saturated with an oppressive sense of dread. It was as if the room itself was watching them, waiting for something.
I felt a shiver crawl down my spine, a cold, creeping sensation that made my skin prickle. Fear gripped me, but I couldn't turn away.
But Samantha, emboldened by a sense of reckless abandon, stepped inside. Her determination was palpable, a stark contrast to the fear that gripped the rest of us. As they explored, their flashlights danced across the room, revealing strange symbols etched into the walls. The scratching sound intensified, growing louder and more insistent, as if something was trying to communicate. Suddenly the room plunged into darkness. Their flashlight had died, leaving them in an impenetrable blackness. The silence was deafening, broken only by their
Panic welled in my chest, a suffocating pressure that made it hard to breathe. My heart pounded in my ears, drowning out all other sounds.
Then she heard it. Samantha's terrified scream, followed by an unearthly growl that seemed to shake the very foundation of the hostel. It was a sound that spoke of ancient, malevolent forces, a presence that had been unleashed. Fumbling in the dark, Emily managed to reignite the flashlight. The beam flickered to life, illuminating a scene that sent a jolt of pure terror through her. Samantha was levitating, her body contorting at an unnatural angle, her eyes completely black. An ear-splitting shriek escaped her lips as if something was ripping its way through her soul. Emily watched in horror as Samantha, her friend, was consumed by an unseen force. The air crackled with malevolent energy. The temperature plummeted. Samantha's screams morphed into guttural growls, her voice distorted and inhuman. Fear, primal and consuming, paralyzed Emily. She wanted to run, to scream, to help her friend, but her body refused to obey. A blood-curdling scream echoed through the hallway, followed by an eerie silence. The other residents, drawn out by the commotion, hesitantly approached the grey room. The door was ajar, casting long, unsettling shadows on the hallway walls. Inside, a scene of unimaginable horror awaited them. Emily lay lifeless on the floor, her eyes wide with terror, a single drop of blood trickling from the corner of her mouth. Samantha, her face pale and her body trembling, stood over her friend's body, a vacant expression in her eyes. The room, once filled with an oppressive darkness, was strangely still, as if the very air held its breath. The presence that had haunted Ashwood. Section 8. The truth unraveled. Panic and fear gripped the residents. The police were called. An investigation launched. But some secrets, as the residents of Ashwood soon discovered, are better left buried. Mrs. Hawthorne, her face ashen, finally revealed the truth about the grey room. It had been sealed off for decades, ever since a series of unexplained deaths and disappearances had plagued the hostel. A local historian brought in to investigate unearthed a leather-bound journal hidden within the hostel's walls. The entries, written in a frantic scrawl, spoke of a vengeful spirit, a malevolent entity trapped within the hostel. The grey room, according to the journal, was the epicenter of the haunting. It was a prison, and they had unwittingly unleashed the prisoner. Section 9. Confronting the darkness. Fear gave way to a desperate need for action. The residents, now united by tragedy and terror, decided to confront the evil that had infiltrated their home. They called upon Father Michael, a renowned exorcist, his reputation preceding him. He arrived at Ashwood, his eyes filled with a weary understanding. Father Michael, clutching his crucifix, stepped into the grey room. The air grew heavy, the temperature plummeted. He could feel the presence of the entity, a palpable wave of hatred and despair. Samantha, still possessed, thrashed wildly, her screams echoing through the hostel. The battle for Ashwood had begun. Section 10. A hostile cleansing. Latin incantations filled the air, the words ancient and powerful, resonating with a force that seemed to shake the very foundations of the hostel. The smell of incense permeated the hostel, a stark contrast to the chilling air that clung to the grey room. The scent was meant to purify, to cleanse the space of the malevolent presence that had taken hold.
In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti exorcizo te.
Father Michael, his voice unwavering, commanded the entity to leave. His words were a beacon of hope in the darkness, a call to arms against the unseen foe. The room became a vortex of chaotic energy, a swirling maelstrom that threatened to consume everything within its grasp. Objects flew across the room, smashing against the walls with a force that defied explanation. Books, furniture, and even small trinkets became projectiles in the supernatural storm. Samantha contorted in agony, her screams echoing through the hostel, her body twisted in unnatural ways, as if the entity within her was fighting to maintain its grip. Father Michael, his face beaded with sweat, continued his relentless assault on the entity. His determination was palpable, a testament to his unwavering faith and resolve. He sprinkled holy water, the liquid sizzling upon contact with the possessed Samantha. The sound was a sharp hiss, a sign that the holy water was having an effect. The air crackled with the force of the struggle, a battle between good and evil raging within the confines of the grey room. The very atmosphere seemed to vibrate with the intensity of the confrontation, as if the walls themselves were bearing witness. Section 11. The silence remains. Silence descended upon Ashwood, a silence so profound it seemed to echo through the empty halls and abandoned rooms. The grey room stood empty, its furniture overturned, its walls scarred by the recent battle. The remnants of the struggle were everywhere, a stark reminder of the chaos that had ensued. Samantha, free from the entity's grip, collapsed, her mind and body exhausted. She had fought bravely, but the toll it took on her was immense. Her breaths came in ragged gasps as she lay on the cold, hard floor, The entity was gone, banished back to the depths from whence it came. The shadows that once danced menacingly on the walls now receded, leaving behind an eerie calm. Ashwood Hostel, once a place of fear and uncertainty, was now eerily quiet. The oppressive atmosphere that had hung over it like a dark cloud had lifted, leaving behind a fragile peace. The oppressive atmosphere had lifted, replaced by a fragile peace. Sunlight streamed through the windows, casting long shadows on the floor, as if trying to cleanse the space of its dark past.
It's over. Finally over. The words were whispered, barely audible, but they carried a weight of relief and exhaustion.
But the memory of Emily lingered, a stark reminder of the darkness that had once threatened to consume them all. Her presence was felt in every corner, a ghostly echo of the past. The grey room remained sealed, a silent testament to the horrors it had unleashed. The chains on the door were a stark warning to anyone who might dare to enter. Life at Ashwood would never be the same. The events that had transpired had left an indelible mark on the place and its inhabitants. The silence, once comforting, now held a note of caution, a constant reminder of the thin veil that separates our world from the next. It was a silence that spoke of the unknown, of the dangers that lurked just beyond the edge of perception.